Hey guys, what's up? I hope you're having a great day. Welcome back to the new story of r/relationship advice. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon for new future videos. Let's get started. Cheers.
Stories in today's video. 1. Cheating wife is still mad I divorced her and amp, she is stuck with her min-wage job and amp, bills too. Reddit, wife who celebrated her pregnancy after she cheated is mad I kicked her out and amp, filed divorce. I want to start this post by saying that I am a regular lurker around these infidelity subs and just today I made this throwaway account to get some advice. Also, since English is not my first language there might be grammatical errors so please excuse those. It has been over 6 months since D-Day, 5 months since divorce and I still need some advice. I do not have enough time to tell my full story, but here is what I can tell you. 1. Married 5 years, had a great S**x life, we had made the choice to not have kids until we were both 35 too. I pretty much caught her having S**x with her AP in our bedroom 3. I had been pretty clear about my views on infidelity right from when we started dating and had told her very clearly that cheating was a complete no-no for me. 4. I stayed calm throughout the entire ordeal. I asked her to get dressed, I called up her elder sister who lived in a nearby town, and asked her to pick my wife up. 5. I blocked her on all platforms, and talked to my lawyer about the divorce proceedings. 6. They drove back to my house the next day, and she immediately threw herself onto me and started crying profusely. She wanted me to give her a chance to explain herself. 7. Even though I did not really want to hear any of it, and my answer would still be divorce whether she cheated 100 times or just once, I sat down with her and asked her some questions. 8. My first question was it an emotional affair or a physical one? She seemed to be stupefied for a good 5 or 6 seconds before tears started streaming down her face and she whined about how I could even think she would have an emotional affair with someone else other than me and swore it was a purely physical one. 9. My second question was, were you unsatisfied in our marriage in any way? She claimed she wasn't. She was incredibly happy with both our S**x life and our financial status. 10. What was the reason then? I don't know, she said and absolutely broke down. She got on her knees and said she feels disgusted with herself. She said she was going through a lot since she wasn't doing well in her job and she wanted to validate her own importance in her mind. She often talked to me about her job too. I supported her wholeheartedly and she was also going to therapy for it, even though I did not understand her reason, I did not poke much into it. 11. How many times were you physically involved? She told me it was only 3 times of physical contact, and she had apparently never allowed him to kiss her. I don't know if that was supposed to make me feel better about it. 12. With that, I was done. I told her that I wanted a divorce. Surprisingly, she did not say anything, just nodded and went to the guest room and locked herself up with her sister. 13. Unfortunately, though, before I could serve her the divorce papers, our district went into lockdown and travel between districts was prohibited. Thus, in an unfortunate turn of events, it seemed I would need to spend a full week with my wife in the same house and I could not even file for divorce because the courts were closed. 13. But I was not having that bullshit. I decided to move out and live in my neighbor's house instead. And that helped somewhat. I would still see her every day. Dark circles, swollen eyes, she looked nothing like before. 14. One day, she got too drunk and I heard her shouting in her room, I disgust you, don't I? You can't even look at my face. And she repeated that the whole night. 15. Another day, I bumped into her talking to someone on the phone in the footpath in front of our house, and she immediately started freaking out, and screamed, I was not talking to him, I promise. It was just my colleague from work. A while later she seemed to realize her mistake and walked away without another word. 16. A week later, they moved away, and I moved back into my house. I got done with the divorce about a month later. Bizarrely, she did not demand anything from me in the settlement. 17. 6 months later, she would still text me and call me sometimes. She once drove over 50 miles to see me when I was ill with COVID. I have not been doing very well. I do still love her. The way she was truly mournful of her mistakes sometimes almost made me feel for her again. But on other times I just want to cut her off completely and start afresh. I am not sure if I would be able to love or marry again, but I did get along with a few hookups in the last 2 weeks or so and to be honest it does feel better somewhat. I do not know if I can move on if we keep talking. I have told her not to talk to me, but she does not listen. Should I just block her everywhere? I really do not want to hurt her, but she has not left me any option. What should I do? So I did exactly what I had intended to do. I called her up and told her that I wished to go completely no contact for a few months. For a few seconds, I heard nothing on her end, long enough for me to ask her if she even heard me. She said she did hear me and started fumbling for words once again. I explained to her that it was not any fault of her, it was just me that was finding it difficult to move on with my life if we kept talking. She said she understood, and promised not to contact me. Before hanging up, she asked me if I was planning on completely cutting her off. I bluntly told her that I was not planning to do so at the moment, but I might change my decision in the future. She told me it was all right, that I deserved to do whatever I needed to get over it, and told me that she would try to find a new job during these months. With that, I bid her farewell, and proceeded to block her on all platforms. A few hours later, her sister called me up. She told me I had made a good decision, especially since ex-wife needed this NC period too. She only did a part-time job, hardly ever went out, and spent the entire day going through old pictures. Thus, at least for the moment, I feel like I have made a good decision. A lot of people have messaged me asking me several questions that were left untouched in the original post. Here, I would like to clear out some. 1. How long has the affair been going on? According to her, they first had S*X when she went on a work-related trip to another city, which was about 1 month before D-Day. Now, she claims there was no S***schul tension between them before this trip, but on the other hand they had been working together in the same office for about 3 months, so I really can't tell if she's lying. 2. How did she behave in the days before D-Day and immediately after it? In the few weeks before D-Day, when her affair was ongoing, I did not really notice anything out of the ordinary. I am generally a very perceptive individual. The usual signs of an affair, such as increased conflict, anger, blaming, trying to keep one's phone close by at all times, I did not notice any of it with her. In fact, she only grew quieter every day. I figured it was because of the problems she was facing in work, and had a good talk with her. She hugged my chest and cried for several minutes, and I did my best in comforting her. We also had a lot of S***X that week, as we usually did every week. I feel kind of **SSED saying this, but we did a role play of her as a criminal and me as a policeman who caught her and then had forceful S***X with her. It was her idea. In hindsight, it does make some kind of sense now, though it kinda F***CKS me up. Apart from that, I noticed nothing out of the ordinary. On the day of discovery, she was dazed throughout the ordeal. It seemed her brain was switched off. She just looked at me with wide eyes, tears streaming down, and just nodded when I told her to wait for her elder sister while I left back to work. Later, sister-in-law later called me up to tell me that ex-wife was nowhere to be found. I was preparing to go out in search of her, when she called again to tell that she found ex-wife walking around in a dazed state around our neighborhood. She was either searching for me or for her AP. I don't know which. In her sister's house, she apparently also tried to harm herself physically, but then calmed down and had some rest. 3. Is she still talking to her AP? This is one point that I failed to mention in my original post. She quit her job immediately after D-Day. According to her, she could not bear to see AP there every day. I had anticipated that she would use this opportunity to ask for a heavy stipulation from the divorce, which made it even more bizarre that she didn't. 4. Was she really talking to her AP on the phone when you stumbled upon her on the footpath? Frankly, I don't know and I haven't asked. 5. How was your relationship after the divorce? We did have an NC period of about 1 week after the divorce. Later, she called me up and asked me if I could consider keeping a friendly relationship with her. I saw no harm in it, so I agreed. We agreed that we would not talk about the divorce, or our married life. We just asked each other about work, and about how we were doing. As for the frequency of contact, I would say minimal, 1 or 2 texts per day maybe, and sometimes none for days. Sometimes we would talk over call, but not for long periods. We never met physically. She did once drive over when I was ill, but was not allowed to actually meet me physically because I was in the isolation ward. 6. Have you tried therapy? Of course. I have been in therapy since D-Day. Ex-wife went to a therapist for the first 2 months after the divorce, but then stopped going for no apparent reason. Some people in the comment section seemed to misunderstand my original post. They kept posting comments asking me to consider reconciliation. I would like to reiterate that my original post was about whether I should block her or not, and not about reconciliation. I made the decision to not reconcile a long time ago, and ex-wife has accepted it. It is not about how much she regrets and mourns over it, I am simply incapable of trusting her again. Me, 28M, and my wife, 30F, have been married for 4.5 years and have a beautiful little girl who is 3. Last year we bought a house which came with *SSIVE amount of stress due to being put through hell by the solicitors we were dealing with. Documents upon documents required, information requested we had already sent, being ghosted by them until we sat on hold to them for hours waiting to speak to someone, each time telling us a different thing. It was a tough time, but at long last, we got a house we both loved and would be amazing for our little one. We tried for a second child a few months after moving in, but it just wasn't happening. My wife began to worry that we couldn't conceive a second as the first one had been so quick after trying only a month. I had some reservations about a second child so soon after the stress of moving, and I was trying to get a better job at the time so we could be more stable. I told her this and she got really upset, thinking if we didn't try now, we would never conceive. I relented as I saw how much it meant to her and I did want a second child, so we tried. Months rolled on until eventually, she fell pregnant. It was great as she was immensely happy, but I had a nagging dread of responsibility that if I didn't get a better job soon, we would struggle with 2 children. I locked myself away for a few months participating in online courses to try and get the skills needed to move into a different career path, something we had discussed and she seemed to be on board with. During this time, we did drift apart as I only saw her for a few hours a night at dinner and then I would go upstairs to the study on the courses. We grew distant and didn't really interact all that much. We still had a decent amount of *X for a married couple, at least once a week, oftentimes more. Fast forward 3 months and we have a talk saying I think we've grown apart a bit and that we weren't like the old us. Things had got a bit robotic with me trying to learn and study ASAP to get a new job with the baby on the way. We agreed we needed to take more time out for each other as things had gotten a bit stale between us. We spoke more from that point onward and she mentions how happy she is at work with her team. One guy in particular she seems to mention more than anyone else in her stories. She changes, almost overnight. Suddenly she starts doing things she wouldn't usually do. She is on her phone almost constantly, taking baths every single day immediately after work, shaving her legs routinely and really going to town on makeup and moisturizer. I questioned her about it at the time. She responded that because she was getting bigger, she wanted to look after herself more and feel a bit better about herself. I bought it. Understandable, right? She is getting worried about being bigger, so I thought that it was good she was doing these small things that made her feel good about herself. It was other things as well, small things that gave me the idea that things weren't as they appeared. Staying later after work, wanting me to go upstairs earlier at night to put our daughter to bed. Things like that. Still, I didn't suspect anything and trusted her 100%. One day out of the blue, she asks if it was okay to go away for the night to see an old school friend she hadn't seen in a long time. I said sure, that's fine, it would be great for her to catch up. It didn't even enter my mind that she was having an affair with a guy from work, or anywhere for that matter. A week or so later my mother-in-law visits and tells a story of her friend who was going through a divorce. Her friend had found texts on her husband's phone that he was having an affair. My mother-in-law and I discussed how awful it must be and that we couldn't imagine getting to a stage where we felt the need to check our partner's phones. I looked at my wife during this conversation and for the tiniest split second saw a flash of unease and fear wash over her face. Then it was gone in a blink and the conversation continued. That was when I started adding things up. I didn't actually believe she had done anything, but there was something in the back of my mind that was nagging at me. As I connected the dots, I became more and more concerned. After she had gone to bed, when I would usually be studying, I walked into the bedroom and it was like I'd caught her in the middle of something. She was in bed and had pulled the covers right up to her chin quickly as I entered. I asked if she was okay, had a small chat about a few things and kissed her goodnight. My mind was now on red alert. I knew her P*S sword from when we got together originally, so I logged into her social media accounts on my computer back in my study, and what I saw was worse than I could have imagined. They had been sending videos of each other masturbating and talking dirty for the last week. She had been doing it when she went to bed and I was studying after I had put our child to bed. The conversations had made it clear they had been having S** X at work and even had S** X in our house whilst I was working. I also found out he was almost 20 years older than her and had a wife and 2 kids of his own. She had been doing things with him that she would never do with me S** surely. He would give her assignments each morning on what to wear, how to talk to him, etc. And she was absolutely loving it. She suggested they book a hotel away as she couldn't bear the thought of being away from him and would say she was meeting up with an old school friend. The messages seemed to indicate that she was pushing things further and further and was planning around our schedule to get in quick F***CKS wherever she could. Pure adrenaline rushed through me as I saved everything I could from those conversations and I slept next to my daughter that night. I didn't actually sleep, I just kind of laid there, thinking and crying. She left for work in the morning and I didn't say anything. It was hard to do, but I didn't really know what to say. She got all dolled up and was happy as can be as she left that morning, and it crushed me. I had planned to confront her when she got home. My mother-in-law came to collect our daughter as she looked after her whilst we were both at work, and I broke down and told her everything. She was extremely sympathetic and disappointed. My wife came home and knew she had been found out. I vented and wanted to know why. Why had she done this? Was the baby mine? Does she love this other person? Does she want to stay together? So many questions. Initially, she didn't saying anything and wouldn't answer my questions. She just looked at the floor, zoning out. Thinking. After ranting for a while, I asked if she could actually talk to me, as staring at the floor was not what I needed from her right now. She swore it had only been in the last week that things between them has escalated surely, which lines up with the messages they had been sending that I had saved. She said she didn't love this guy and that it was stupid mistake. She claimed she wasn't thinking. It was nothing to do with me and that she still loved me. I had done nothing wrong. It was just an escape from what had become a monotonous life. She blamed the hormones. She said she hadn't been well mentally for a while. I didn't know what to do. I went for a walk and I contacted my mother, who lives far away from us. She was understanding and said I had to think about things carefully as there was still our daughter and our unborn child to think about. I vented to my mother and went back. Despite everything, I still loved my wife. I wanted to be together, to go back to the way things were before we got the house. In the interest of maybe salvaging our marriage and the kids, I didn't tell anyone else anything. She stayed at my mother-in-law's house that night with our daughter so I could get some headspace, but it did little to ease my pain. I wanted to be with her. I called her and said I missed her. She said the same. The next night, we had S** X and it was like nothing had happened. I felt like I needed to reclaim what had been taken from me, so I was the one who initiated it. We decided that we did love each other and that although it was going to take time, things would be rough for a while. I just wanted to see what would happen when the baby was born. I couldn't give up so easily. I just asked her to be 100% honest with me from now on. She went back to work and said she had moved offices away from him. She claimed that they had spoken and she had told him that her family was the most important thing to her and that they could no longer carry on. He asked her if that was what she truly wanted and she reiterated it to him. So we both went back to work, which at first was horrible. I would come home in a different mood every day. Sometimes angry, sometimes crying, sometimes okay. I started trying to study less and spend more time with her, watching TV, reading with her next to me, getting up with her in the mornings to say goodbye instead of staying asleep. It wasn't to make sure she wasn't still messaging him, it was because I had realized that this is what I wanted. To be normal again. I started going to the gym, eating healthier and looking after myself more. We had good days and bad, taking our daughter on outings and playing with her. More S** X here and there. Her parents paid for us to all go away to a spa, which was nice. After a few weeks I was slowly but surely believing more and more that this could work. I felt like some good could actually come out of the whole situation. Last week, she said she had to go away on a business trip on a day she doesn't usually work. I said that was pretty irregular and I would obviously be a bit worried. She had asked a friend to take our daughter whilst we were both at work instead of her mother-in-law. This was also unusual. I expressed my concern and asked her if she was using this opportunity to meet up with him again. She said no and gave me the time and location she would be on the day to ease my mind. By this time, things had been going pretty well, although it was still extremely early, 3 weeks since D-Day. I went to work that day dreading I'd be worried sick. Surprisingly, I was fine. It was actually the first, normal, day I had experienced at that point. I saw how much she said she wanted us to be together. How upset she had been. How much better I felt in such a short amount of time. I believed her. Then she called me on my lunch, said things had been cancelled at work and she was coming home early. I asked if she wanted to grab lunch as she would be in the same area as my work by that time. She said no, she just wanted to go home as her back was hurting due to the pregnancy, now 5 months in. I said okay and concentrated on work. I asked her how her day was when she got home and she said work had been boring and not very eventful. We went to sleep but I woke up in the middle of the night. I kept thinking how odd it was that she had gone away that day and then come back so early. To stop the madness going on in my brain, I checked her phone and it showed that she hadn't been where she said she had been. She woke up to me fidgeting with anxiousness and I confronted her. She denied she had seen him again. I pointed out all the evidence and she eventually admitted it. She said they had cleared the air and they both agreed they wanted to focus on their families and nothing else was going to happen between them. She said they had just talked about what had happened and to get some closure. She hadn't spoken to him at work very much at all since D-Day and she wanted to close the case. I argued that she had set up an elaborate lie, still lied when she knew I had figured it out and had refused point blank when I asked if she was going to see him that day. She said she went to his house but did not go inside. They went to a local cafe, got some coffee and just walked around the park talking for an hour or two. I pulled up a picture of a random cafe on my phone which was nowhere near the location she said she was at. I asked if that was the one they had been to. She said yes, that was the one. Another lie. I told her that the cafe was nowhere near where she said she was and she got angry and defensive. She said, I wasn't paying attention. It was all just a bit of a blur. It's not proof I'm lying. I'm telling the truth. Nothing happened. In the morning as one last test, I said that she would have to prove it. I asked her if she would message the guy saying, I feel much better after yesterday, you? This way, if he replies with something harmless and in line with what she had told me then it could be true. If, however, he mentions that they had **X again or replies with anything dirty, the game would be up. She refused. I tried to take her phone off of the bedside table saying I would send it if she wouldn't. She went mad and screamed at me whilst snatching her phone away. She then began typing on it furiously. This to me was as good as a confession. She said she lied to me again about where she was because she thought I would leave if I found out she wanted to talk to him again. This was yesterday and I haven't really slept in 36 hours. We have agreed for her to stay at her mother's house tonight. I have no idea what to do. There are more details but I have been typing for a while. I just can't believe that she is pregnant with my child, I'm 99.9% sure it's mine, and is still hanging around this guy.